thrilled to be joined by Scott Anderson, lead vocalist for Finger 11, Canadian rockers. And you're set to release your first album in a decade. So Last Night on Earth, set to be released November 7th. So 10 years since Five Crooked Lines. So what finally pulled Finger 11 back into the studio?
Well, would you believe me if I told you that we never really stopped? Nobody told us to stop making the record, so we just kept, making it and remaking it, and eventually we had to kind of, frame it up. But it's been so long. It's the opposite of the studio system, really, where you're given, X amount of weeks or like a month or two, and then once that's done, your record is complete, whether you like it or not. So we finally got some American label interest, and we were on the Creed tour last summer, and so deadlines became a little more real. So after blowing by a few of them, we thought, yes, let's really, really finish this. That's kind of that's the tale of it, and it does take time, but I think the results are incredibly strong. I think fans are going to enjoy what they hear on the record, and I'm sorry it took so long.
Well, I don't think you need to apologize. I think fans are pumped for it. So let's dig into some of the new music a bit. So the title track, which people can listen to now. You've released a couple singles, but it's a beautiful kind of stripped down tune. And I read a quote that you said the song really captures that unsettling feeling or when something's unresolved in a relationship. Last Night on Earth, the title track, means to you?
When I was writing Last Night on Earth, I don't remember what inspired the song as far as like specific arguments. I just remember the feeling, that uncertainty. I don't know if it was a silly argument. I'm not even sure. I think it started with, Rick had sent me this demo of this very, it was this beautiful acoustic thing. And, often I'll sit down and I won't have an idea of where to go. I'll just try to respond to music. But in this case, clearly there's stuff going on and I get to work through it musically. And it's funny because it's the feeling I remember. I don't remember the source material. Once I finished it, I thought, well, this is great. Yeah, it's all right there. That's how I was feeling. And I love songs like that. Now I have one of my own on the other side of it. It's tough to figure out what happens next when you feel this way. When you have some sort of conflict, it's like, okay, well, is anything going to be back to normal? What are things going to look like? It's neat. It was a very organic situation that I put myself. It's like, all right, I'm going to press record and I'm going to see what happens. And it's nice when those moments turn into like decent music.
Right.
So it was a little tough to kind of live through. Good news is I don't remember what the argument was about. Everybody got through it unscathed. So, the music lives on, and that's the good news.
Absolutely. And, I thought it was interesting. I read a quote from your bandmate, Steve, who talked about Last Night on Earth. And it's funny how you mentioned too, Scott, that, you had lots of time and you were never really not in the studio, but there was no, up until the last bit, there was no pressure to get the album finished, that sort of thing. But from what I understand, it's kind of ironic that Last Night on Earth, from what I understand, it kind of came together last minute in the studio almost by accident.
The demo had existed for quite some time, but getting it over, like figuring out how to like serve the song in the best way possible, because everybody thought it was something special, but trying to figure out, okay, what can we do to make this song deserves, AAA treatment. So we had, let's figure out how to get it there. Steve had heard these like great string implementation and Rick, I remember talking about Last Night on Earth wanting like a super chorus, like something better that's there. And that was a frustrating element for me where it's like, well, yeah, okay, sure. I like a super chorus. I'd also like a Formula One car. Like, how do we get there? It's a great idea, And so we pushed the song in a few different directions until we found this. There's kind of an elevated part in the song, and everybody thought, oh, okay, that's what you were talking about. There's the super chorus. That's good. And it's just tough to go like, all right, not only is that good, but it feels like it was there the whole time. That's a magical moment when you're trying to write songs. You break them open, try to make them better, and try not to make them worse. We had these deadlines, and we were using every single minute to try to meet them. We got there eventually. I'm glad all the songs remain intact, just to finally step away and say, okay, we're done. a little nerve-wracking. I'm happy to say that, the whole band they're so happy with the record. And it's just a nice thing to actually say. You can't always say that.
More of the tunes that people can hear already. Another single, Blue Sky Mystery, features Richard Patrick from Filter. So how did that collaboration come about? From what I understand, having another vocalist on a Finger 11 album, that's a first for the band, right?
It's a very first for the Finger 11 boys. We don't do a lot of collaborating. We're not really even a jam band. We can't be that, if we walk into a bar and there's like it's open mic night where it's like, come on up and we can jam with a couple other bands. It's difficult for me. I know. I think James has done it once or twice, but that's not part of our repertoire most of the time. We reached out to Richard Patrick. We thought, okay, well, would he be interested? Because this might be really neat to do a collaboration. He agreed to a phone call. So I spoke to him for about 45 minutes. It was a really, really nice conversation. It didn't sound like I was speaking to a stranger. We were just talking about band stuff and ex-members and touring and like new songs and, just the excitement that like you've got some music that you can't wait for fans to hear, but you're just kind of sitting on it now. And that's a kind of a nice special moment. You have it all to yourself. But he responded really, really strongly to Blue Sky Mystery. So we talked about the song for a while. And he got it. And Steve and Rich did a remote session. I think it was over a course of a couple days. Like, I think it turned out so well, but that's a hard thing to do. Like Finger 11, again, the remote stuff was tough for us to do. It's like, it usually has to be about guys in a room. But for the song to translate for him and the fact that he was able to deliver a vocal performance, not his words, he's so pro that he did the impossible. Like he sold it. And that, it's kind of wonderful, remotely. What was really cool is we got to do a video together after that. And of course that was in person. He was on tour and he took on his day off. He rolled into this, warehouse in Toronto and we hung out and he just dove right in and we performed as if we were performing, as if we had done it a million times. That was pretty special. Very conversational. He brought up that, that his brother is in the Terminator and we were like, yeah, we know. Like, dude, come on. Like, we know that. We already know that. We were a little gun shy, because traditionally Finger 11 doesn't collaborate, but this one went really, really well. So I'm glad it did. Because we were out of our comfort zone, but I'm glad it all worked out and it, sounds phenomenal.
Speaking of collaborations, you mentioned last year you were on tour with Creed and playing a ton of shows. So you have a massive Canadian tour that's going to be coming up with Headstones and the Tea Party. So what an awesome triple bill of Canadian rock. So what can you say, Scott, about the tour, about the Tea Party, about Headstones? And I feel like this is, not going to be just like a show, a rock show, but it's almost sounds like a traveling rock music festival, right?
You know what? With that caliber, with Tea Party, Headstones, and Finger 11, I know what you mean. It is almost like a festival. It's as far as like that billing goes. I grew up with listening to Headstones and Tea Party on the radio, like everybody else. And to be on the same bill, like at the same sort of level, is a dream come true. It's just going to be a night full of awesome songs that you're going to be able to sing along, and it's going to take you back. We're going to sneak some new stuff in there, but it's mostly going to be stuff that and I'm very, very excited to be part of it. It's on a pretty massive scale, but not just nostalgic. There's more stuff coming out from all the bands. Yeah, it's just going to be this monster tour across Canada, and I can't wait to jump in.
Oh, well, we can't wait to see it. And I think that's the piece that you mentioned. It's not just a greatest hits tour for all of you. You all have new music. You're still being creative. You're still, in the game and creating new art all the time, right?
That's an important element, certainly for Finger 11. It's nice when somebody knows your stuff and maybe they'll bring their kids to the show to show them what they used to listen to. But also, the band is completely reinvigorated because of this brand new record. And that's what you're going to see. You will be able to feel that. There's a band out there that wants to be there, because it brings us back to being 17 again. We're doing this for the love of the game. We're excited to bring that kind of energy all across Canada.
I mentioned this earlier, and speaking of nostalgia and having great success, throughout your career, and I mentioned this that I saw you guys at Louder in Life, and this kind of jumped out at me, when we were watching you guys, and you played the song "Paralyzer," which is one of your most well-known songs, obviously, and it's really become kind of a global anthem. So, with that context, I guess, Scott, when you're creating new music and you have songs that are so well known, do you look at that as like a shadow to step out of, or more like a foundation to build on?
Yeah, when I'm writing, I don't really think about the past success, especially with Paralyzer, because I think you'll just go nuts trying to recreate something like that. I mean, if I could, I would, but I'm simply not that talented. I couldn't like willingly, convincingly create another Paralyzer. But I guess I'm also, maybe not that interested in doing it. But when I go to write a new song, I'm just looking for that next hit. Not even I mean dopamine. I don't mean charting. It's just more like, okay, what can my friends and I create that we all really love? And then we can share it with everybody. We just keep doing that. And sometimes everybody else comes around to the idea and thinks it's all right. And sometimes they don't. But we just keep doing that. So that's the secret. There are songs where you'll write, like Paralyzer, it was a really fluky origin, but when it came about, I definitely thought, okay, this is kind of special. There are songs that there's a seed there where you go, okay, there's something cool here. Let's not screw it up. That's pretty cool. Others you got to work to complete, but you love them just as much. But I don't see the previous successes as any kind of burden or anything. I think it's nice. I mean, my advice to any band would be yes, have a hit. It will prolong your career, but don't let it be your guiding star. Just do, whatever your guiding star is at the moment. Just focus on that. Don't worry about your other stuff now. It's tough because it's a business and labels might have something to say about it. But if you just keep being a band and listening to each other, everything else will fall by the wayside and it'd be far less important.
A big part of any band's career are the fans that follow them and the fans that go to shows and listen to the albums. So your fans are going to be able to hit play on a brand new record November 7th. So what are you hoping the fans feel by the time the record ends after they hit play on your new album?
I hope they enjoy the journey half as much as we do. We were thinking of them the whole time. We're trying to make the best stuff possible. I hope they hear that. And I hope they hear something that reminds them of the first time they heard Finger 11. I think there's some old school stuff in there. And there's some evolutionary stuff too. There's a harder riff rock element to most of the songs. And then there's some brand new things. We used piano for the very first time ever on a record. I think that's true. But I hope they hear a band that's confident in their sound. I hope they feel proud to have been part of the journey that's still going.
Right on, Scott. We're personally looking forward to hitting play on the whole album, Last Night on Earth, which is coming out November 7th. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys with Headstones and the Tea Party. Scott, thank you very much for taking the time with us. We'll let you get rested up before you head out on tour.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.